Okay, so first we're going to set the angle, and we're going to do that by getting his foot approximately inside the step like this. If it's a little bit out, just know that's going to affect your up left, whether or not it's like the amount left you hold or when you hold it. I think when you hold it shouldn't be affected, but either way, it'll, affect it right there, but just try to get this. In the interest of time, don't be too strict about it. And then from here, what you're going to do is go C down, and I don't recommend setting the angle while it's rotating back. You could try to do that, but in my experience, it's easy to get the wrong angle doing that. So what I like to do is wait till the cam's all the way back like this, and then rotate. And I hold I hold up on the stick while the cam is moving back, and then I just rotate to the right. You can see on the input display there. I keep the stick pushed all the way out, and I just take like a little step to the right. And so you get used to seeing what it looks like when you've done it correctly. Here it is. This is a 49040. If you take too little of a step, you get a 49091. And if you hold it for too long, you'll get a wider angle, of course. So don't be afraid to like push it. It's easy to do too small of a step if you're thinking like do the smallest step possible. After a while, maybe at first it's okay to think do the smallest step possible, but either way, that's how you do it. That's my recommendation. Wait for the cam to move all the way back. Just take one small step to the right. And there's another way to get it, but it wastes a second, so I'd rather not go into it if it's not needed. Yeah, ask me about it if you want that. Alright, next, the actual SBLJ. So, I'm not gonna do that. So the mash, you're gonna start on an early frame for the first jump. Doesn't have to be first, just try to do it early. And you're gonna be between up and up left when you land, about right here or so. And, oops, that was, I left early. So you're gonna do 4 in that angle, all 5th frames. And then, from there, you're gonna try to do 2 more 5th frames in left notch, and then 2 4th frames after that, also in left notch, and then 1 more 4th frame in upright. However, in my experience, it's not super strict, so you could speed up a little earlier and it seems like it's fine, like around when you go left. I would just recommend make sure you don't speed up too much, because sometimes you'll just hit the fence regardless of whether or not you're holding upright, and maybe right could fix that, like holding right notch to exit, but then you would lose more speed from doing that. So I don't recommend speeding up too much. You can also accidentally go through this fence, and then you'll like inevitably fly to the pillar over here if you mash too fast. So, and you don't need to mash that fast to get good speed. So if you do it right, you should hit the wall about 225 to 270 or so. I saw 280 from somebody once, and I think they sped up too early. Maybe they mashed a little fast. So, another reason, beware, because you don't really want speeds that high, as you'll see. 270 is pretty rare, but it's also pretty hard to deal with when you get it. So even higher, not a good thing. And if you're getting 225, that's pretty rare as well. If you're getting below, it means you're not speeding up. But so in the interest of time, I've got a few save states here: 230, 240, 250, 260, 270, approximately. And I'm just going to show you how those airBLJs work. And so you could extrapolate a little bit for like a 225, be a little tiny bit slower than this. It'd be about the same thing. So yeah, okay, so here's the airBLJs. So this is brand new. So the exact timing on the stick and the exact frames you're supposed to jump, I can't say because I'm not sure yet. I'm still learning. But I also think if I said you have to exactly press A on this frame, it'd be way too strict. It'd be a pointless strategy. So it's kind of like on the left of the pillar. I don't know if you know, but people were able to just kind of get a feel for like, okay, you know, he had this motion on the pillar, so that means I need to pull down on the stick about this much and also jump around this frame, like do it mid-frame and pull down on the stick about this much. And that would have been the same, you know, that movement would have been equivalent to pulling down on the stick a lot more and doing an early frame, right? Like, it didn't have to be the way that they did it, but they just kind of got used to, I know this visual corresponds to I should do this with this stick and timing my jump, and it's the exact same here. So the cue here is we're watching how he bumps the pillar when we hold up left notch. So we're staying in that notch, right, to keep that variable fixed. And so how this works is the faster he is, the farther away he gets pushed when he bonks the pillar, and the slower he'll return to the pillar, right? Because if he's faster, he's getting sucked more into the door because he's rotated in that direction. So he's going to get pushed away more, and he's going to come back slower. So you can use those things together to watch his motion as he's bonking this pillar to determine how fast you are without having your speed display up. So you can see here for a low speed, and it's especially after you do the first airBLJ. So you can kind of tell before a little bit. It's a lot more subtle before you've done a jump, but after you've done the jump, you can see he like. Here, let's see which save state do I have. He gets pushed out that far, and then he starts coming back, and he's gonna bonk again like really quickly. And I know you don't have anything to compare that to, so here's like a 270. So when he bonks here, you can see he got pushed away a lot farther. And he's also going to come back so slowly, he's not even going to hit it again before he lands. Whereas, you know, with the 230, he hit it again. He was pretty much still at the peak of his jump when he hit the pillar again. So those are the two extremes to illustrate the point. But you can work your way up. You know, there's a spectrum of speeds, and you can tell what's going on by doing this. So here's my little anecdotal, like not very much experience with it, kind of advice for how to deal with these airBLJs. So I'll say this, we want as much speed as possible. So we want to get as close to 400 as we can without overspeeding. Or, well, obviously, we'll overspeed if we go over 400. So we want to get as close to 400 as possible after the second airBLJ. So here with these 230s, we're going to see him bonk and not get pushed away very far and start coming back really quickly. And so at that point, I think you should stop pointing the stick in up left, like to up left, go a little more up to conserve a little more speed, and then do like a mid or maybe even an early frame. Maybe not an early frame, maybe a mid frame. And yeah, we'll talk about the launch after. So here's the 240. So here we're going to see pretty similar behavior, but you see he's not going to bonk until he's a bit lower. And he also, you know, got pushed away a little bit more. It's pretty similar, and luckily because of that, the speeds are also pretty similar, and what you end up doing is pretty similar. Like, if we pull the stick off and off of up left and go more toward up and then do like a mid frame, you saw it worked there. It's not going to, that was a little later frame. It's not a good idea to do a different speed strategy, but you know, it's close enough to where you don't have to be like, oh my god, this is completely different. I'm screwed if I do it like a 230 on a 240. But I think the best thing to do here would be to just stay in up left and then do like an early frame. That's really fast. that's pretty high speed, but that's good. And you can see there's a few things you could do, right? Like you could go back towards up and then do a later frame. Oh, that got about the same speed. So yeah, like I said, figuring out different combinations of what to do with the stick and what to do with the frame that you jump. A lot of it is going to be the frame you jump. Not a lot of stick movement's going to happen here, but for these next three, the three higher speeds, you are going to do a little bit more stick movement. 240 is the one where you probably don't have to ever do stick movement at all. I mean, to get the launch you do, but like I said, we'll talk about that. Okay, so 250 here, you can see he gets pushed over a bit more. The thing I'm looking at is the amount of like brick to the left of him, right, when he gets pushed over like that. So if I see that, I just pull down very briefly. Oops. Once I see it, you don't want to jump too early, and you get pretty good speed. I guess that was also like a mid-frame. And I guess I'm not really saying what I'm doing with this first jump. I think I'm generally doing a mid-frame again. So here's a 260. And here's something you could kind of think about, like, when I bonk, how frequently I bonk is going to kind of depend on how close to the pillar I was when I started holding up left, but it's also going to depend on the speed. So here, I bonk at like the peak of my jump, so I've got like 15 frames or so to bonk it again, and I don't. So I can kind of know before I even do the first airBLJ that I'm slow that way. Because you can compare here, we bonk twice at 230, here at 240, we bonk twice, here at 250, we bonk twice, but here at 260, nope. So we maybe want to go for a fifth frame here on purpose, like a really late frame first airBLJ. And you can also see like where I do the jump is going to influence like when I hit the pillar. So the other ones were usually hitting the pillar like at the peak of his jump. He was close enough to the pillar this time so that he was close enough that he ended up just bonking like partway up the pillar, like halfway to the peak of his jump. So he got pushed over a lot lower. So just beware of that. Oops. He lingers at that distance long enough, actually. You can definitely get a glimpse of how far over he got pushed. But because he's lingering at that distance for so long, you also know he's moving back to the pillar really slowly, so you know he's fast. So here, things get more complicated, and I don't really have like a great answer for what to do. You just pull down for some amount of time. Don't hold down too long. You can see about the amount of time I'm holding it down. I don't really know how long that is. And I'm usually doing like a later frame jump still. And finally, 270. Yeah, like even before the first jump, you can see he's not even like starting to move back toward the pillar. Oops. Like he's just, and at that point you might want to pull down early too, like before you get to the peak of your jump after doing the first airBLJ. But this one's a lot harder to manage because you got to see like, oh wow, he got pushed over a lot, you know, and then I'm gonna pull down, try to jump accordingly, and yeah, we got a lot of mid 360s, which is interesting. And I'll talk about that after the launch. So let me talk about the launch now. So after we do the second airBLJ, we're gonna move, you know, up. And you can see, shit, hang on. Okay, that should be a good save state. So right here, you can see as soon as I move the center of Mario over this vertical white line, this texture that's like splitting him in half right now, it's like a white line in between the bricks. As soon as his center reaches that point, there's a hitbox. It's an overlapping region between this hitbox, this slanted wall, and the wall you're jumping against. And so it ends up like instantly snapping Mario over like that as soon as he enters it. That's like usually what will happen when, or that's usually what causes a launch to happen during Ultimate. But here we're doing it at the peak of our jump so that we get pushed above the door. And the reason for that is because we're gonna fall into the door rather than move into it from the side. Now the reason is because I didn't want to get too into technical details on anything here, but I will just show you. You can see the star counter is his Y speed. That number is always the same on a given frame. Like during airBLJs, the vertical speed doesn't depend on your horizontal speed at all. It doesn't depend on anything. It's just constant gravity motion. So you're gonna move, like 3 frames after the peak of your jump, you're always gonna move the exact same distance, as an example. So because of the fact that vertical motion is always the same, if we fall into the launch, we'll always enter on the exact same frame. And so we can avoid having to, maybe frame perfectly move the stick to force him to launch on the same frame every time. But also, it's going to happen on the same quarter frame. So we're always going to move into the hall in a normalized way if we use this launch. So the way to get it is to snap above the door like this. So at the peak of your second airBLJ, what I do is I go about up, like just to get him over to that vertical white line, cause this snap to happen above the door, and then right when I do that, I start holding left notch. If I keep holding up, you can see he just kind of falls in. And also, it's hard to do, but if I held left like too early, like I was too high, I would actually get back to that vertical white line, and then I would get pushed in based on that hitbox interaction, and I might not launch at all. It certainly wouldn't be this normalized launch. I don't think it could be. There's an extremely slim region where he could enter like on his way over in between the door and this wall hitbox that he's moving towards when he's moving to the left. And you could enter that if you don't hold left soon enough. These are all like fringe cases. You're gonna almost certainly do this if you just go above the door, like go to up notch to enter that white vertical line, like just before the peak of your jump, and then right when you snap over above the door, hold left notch, and you will fall into this this wall hitbox before you get to that like vertical white line again. And once he's low enough, there's like some ceiling hitbox in the door frame that gets out of the way. I don't know what it is, how it works. I've seen it in Stroop, and once it's gone, he enters at this height on the same quarter frame every time. And so this can only happen above 344 speed, and as you can see, you're moving to the left, so you're holding left notch when it happens. So it's heavily constraining the strategy now at this point. It's heavily constraining Ultimate. And this is why we used 49040, so that we could do this without a pause. If we used like 48928, we could get it, but it's like almost frame perfect stick movement. This makes it much more lenient to have this smaller angle. So besides getting easier high-speed SBLJs and being able to use these pillar airBLJs, these up-left airBLJ pillar Q things, this is the main reason to use 49040. Is this, it's called Phoenix launch. So yeah, it controls our quarter frame, it controls the height we enter, it restricts our speed really heavily, it restricts our stick angle, and so the last variable is what frame do we jump in the hall. So we're 3 frames above the ground here, so we're going to move 3 frames in the air, and then we'll have 5 frames to jump. So because our stick angle is already at left notch, in my opinion, it's really, really hard to go from left to down in like a frame or left to up in like a frame. So it's easiest to just look for strategies that use left notch, up left notch, down left notch, or neutral on the stick, and then look for whole BLJ frames that work with those. And there's a few that are good ideas, and I'll say that airBLJs, because they're so new, exactly what speeds we're getting isn't completely clear. As you could see, I was getting some mid-60s. Sometimes I was getting some high 40s. So there's no range that like covers 48 to 64, but there is one that covers 49 to 63. So that's, you know, this speed falls in there. So that's a 5th frame with the stick neutral. So neutral works really well because when you're holding left notch in the air or neutral, you lose the same amount of speed pretty much exactly. So if you take 3 frames to go neutral, it's not a big deal. Like, you're not going to change the range that you can actually use if you take an extra frame to move the stick in this case, or I guess let go of the stick in this case. So yeah, neutral's great. And you can do a 5th frame jump with neutral. Whoops, of course I miss. And that'll work for, like I said, 349 to 363 launch speeds, which is extremely, extremely solid. Like, you have such a great percentage of success once you learn the timing for a 5th frame. And there's something else. There's something else you can do with the neutral 5th. Let me see if I can get the speed. This might work. Yeah, okay. So it's about 359 to 361 launch speed. Will make this possible. Well, you can see he's brushing up against fire C, and then you have 1 frame to press Z again, and he'll ground pound in, and that saves it a second and a half. Maybe 1 frame less than a second and a half. So yeah, it's pretty solid. But another thing you could do, left notch, 2nd frame, oops, which is pretty much immediately. Heck, I can't get a 2nd frame. I'm not jumping on the right frame. That's the only variable here. So left notch 2nd frame is 354 to 366. It's a little high. So what you could do is rotate to up left notch, and that drops the range down 2 to 4 speeds, and that's a lot more common. That's about it. I guess the last thing would be, you know, when you go through, enter by holding like the stick toward fire C and long jumping in like that. It's tempting to like do this like I don't know, something like that. It's not as fast. The long jump is the fastest thing, besides the ground pound. But yeah, there you go.